I died and Jesus revealed how the mark of the beast will be forced on us. This is going to be a scary
10th,
one.
2020. My name is Aurelia Olivia. I was a doctor living in Seattle, Washington, with a promising career and everything I thought I needed. Life was predictable, even busy, but on December 10th, 2022, everything changed. That day I died for 10 minutes. It started as an ordinary Saturday morning. I was rushing through my shift at the hospital, juggling patient charts and sipping lukewarm coffee. Seattle's winter rain hammered against the windows. The day felt no different from any other, but something kept nagging at me, a strange unease I couldn't shake. I remember glancing at the clock, 11:42 a.m. My next memory is collapsing in the middle of the ER. A heart attack at 34. Can you believe it? A doctor who never smoked, never drank much, and jogged 3 times a week, suddenly gone. When I came to, 10 minutes had passed. The medical team was frantic, paddles and monitors flashing, but I was no longer in the hospital. I was somewhere else. It's hard to describe where I went. One moment, my body was in chaos. The next, I was standing in absolute stillness. It wasn't dark or light, it was just infinite. The air hummed with a power I could feel in my bones.
Can you imagine how scary that is?
Suddenly, a figure emerged, cloaked in radiant light. I knew
Wow.
instantly who it was, Jesus. He didn't speak at first. His eyes, filled with love yet blazing with authority, seemed to pierce every corner of my soul. I wanted to fall to my knees, but I couldn't move. It wasn't fear that paralyzed me, but an overwhelming sense of awe. Then he spoke, and his voice was like rushing waters and a gentle breeze all at once. Aurelia, he said, his voice tender yet commanding, you are here for a reason. There is something I must show you, something you must tell the world. Before I could speak, the scene shifted. It was as if I was transported into the near future. I found myself standing in a bustling city, surrounded by towering screens and holographic billboards. They were advertising tiny devices, chips that people could have implanted in their hands or foreheads. The ads were flashy and persuasive, promising a life of convenience, security, and connection. The next step in human evolution, the tagline said. People flocked to clinics to get these implants. Young couples, elderly grandparents, even parents with children in tow. It'll make life so much easier, I heard one woman say. Another man added, no more wallets or keys, no more identity theft. It's perfect. At first, it looked harmless, even helpful. They call it progress, Jesus said, his voice heavy with sadness. They think it will bring connection and safety, but it's a lie. The scene shifted again. Now I saw giant advertisements everywhere. They promoted these devices as the future, promising to stop identity theft, help fight crime, and protect children. People lined up to get them, excited for how much easier life would be. At first, the chips seemed like a good idea. Governments made them mandatory for workers, and soon private companies joined in. Eventually, everyone had to have one. Without it, people couldn't buy food, go to the doctor, or even enter buildings.
And how can you say the Bible is not true when the Bible predicted this years ago, before we even had internet, before we even knew what Wi-Fi was? The Bible predicted this. Scary stuff. Oh my days. Thank you, Jesus.
Without it, people couldn't buy food, go to the doctor, or even enter buildings. What started as helpful quickly became a way to control everyone. Jesus turned to me, his face serious. Even some of my followers will believe this is good. But accepting this mark has a price, an eternal one. It's a choice. Will they trust me or the world's systems? My heart raced as he spoke. This wasn't some far-off warning. It was happening now, and I had to tell people about it. Before I could think more, Jesus reached out again, and the vision changed. Now, I was in a boardroom with government leaders and business executives. They were discussing how to make the chips universal. On the screen behind them were charts showing rising poverty, crime, and economic problems. One man stood up and held a tiny chip, no bigger than a grain of rice. This, he said, is the answer. It will stop fraud, protect kids, and keep our borders secure. Imagine a world where no one can be kidnapped or lost. This isn't just technology. It's the key to peace and safety. The room erupted in applause. But inside, I felt sick. Jesus' voice came again, calm but sad. It starts with good intentions, he said. They'll promise safety and unity. Fear will push people to accept it. The scene changed once more. Now I was in a massive stadium. A powerful leader stood on a stage, surrounded by religious figures from all faiths. The leader spoke passionately about ending wars and solving the world's problems. "This isn't just a device," he said, raising his hand to
Like
show
the
the
video.
glowing chip under his skin. "It's progress. Together, we're creating a better future." The crowd cheered wildly. Religious leaders, Christian pastors, Muslim imams, Hindu gurus, and others stood behind him, nodding in agreement. Their approval made people trust him even more. What started as optional soon became mandatory. Without the implant, people couldn't enter certain buildings, access their bank accounts, or even buy groceries. It became the only system for healthcare, education, and basic services. I saw Christians, some confused, others desperate, debating whether to get it. "It's not the mark of the beast," one pastor reassured his congregation. "It's just technology." The vision darkened, and I saw the consequences of resisting. Those who refused the implant were ostracized. Employers fired them. Banks froze their accounts. Children from faithful families faced bullying at school. I saw a mother holding her crying child, denied medical treatment because they didn't have the implant. Tears filled my eyes as I watched families torn apart. Husbands begging wives to reconsider. Friends turning on each other. Co-workers distancing themselves from the troublemakers. The scene shifted again. Now I saw a young mother, pleading with her boss. "I can't take the chip," she said, tears streaming down her face. "My faith won't allow it." Her boss shook his head. "I'm sorry, but without it, we can't keep you on payroll." Jesus turned to me. "This is how it will begin. Slowly, quietly, until it controls everything: food, healthcare, education. Those who refuse will be cast out, but those who trust me will endure." I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The truth was too stark, too horrifying. Yet even in this vision of chaos, there was hope. Jesus' presence radiated peace, reminding me that those who remained faithful would not be abandoned. Yet, amid this chaos, a small group of believers stood firm. They created alternative communities, learning to grow their own food, trade goods without money, and rely on each other. They gathered in secret to pray and worship, their faith unshaken. These were the faithful, Jesus
Amen.
said, the ones who would endure. Then Jesus spoke again, his voice heavy with urgency. "Aurelia, my people must prepare. This is not a time for fear, but for faith. They must strengthen their relationship with me, learn to live apart from the system, and stand together as one body. Tell them to trust me completely. I will provide." The vision left me breathless. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and awe. This wasn't just a warning, it was a wake-up call. The scene changed again. Now I was in a room with dim lights, and the air felt thick with worry. People were talking about the new system, but the talk wasn't about making life easier anymore. It was about forcing people to follow. A man stood in front of a group of workers. His voice was cold and firm. "Listen up," he said. "This isn't a choice anymore. If you want to keep your job, buy food, or live normally, you have to take the mark. You don't get a say." A woman raised her hand, her face tired and full of fear. "But what if we don't want it?" she asked. "Don't we have any rights?" The man's answer was harsh. "No mark, no rights," he said. "This isn't just about
Wow.
surviving. It's about staying part of the world. If you refuse, you'll lose everything. Your job, your home, your place in society." His words made my stomach drop. This wasn't just a small change. It was like the world I knew was disappearing. People who said no to the mark wouldn't just be pushed aside. They'd be erased. The scene changed once more.
He said no mark, no rights. That sounds like something that could be protested. No mark, no rights, no mark, no rights. Get rid of all these Christians, they're trying to ruin the system. No mark, no rights. Mate, I'm sorry, if you don't have a mark, you're not getting in. I can imagine it, because yeah, if they'd done that with the thing that we went through 5 years ago, then yeah.
I was on a mountain, and the wind was howling like a storm. Jesus stood next to me, strong and steady. "Things will get darker," he said. "Storms, disasters, and fear will take over the world. Leaders will use this fear to control people. But my children must stay strong. They need to be ready, not just with food and supplies, but with hearts full of faith. Their connection to me will be their lifeline." Then the scene shifted again. I was on a street, watching a long line of people. They were waiting for the implant. It wasn't just old folks or people in need anymore. Even young, hopeful faces stood in line. eager to get the mark. They thought it was the answer to their problems. Jesus' voice came again, narrating what I was seeing. The choice to accept the mark is not just physical. It is spiritual. It represents allegiance, a declaration of trust in man's systems over God. Those who take it sever their connection to me. They lose the ability to respond to my voice, their hearts growing harder with each passing day. I saw the effects of this choice. Those who accepted the implant initially felt empowered, as if they had gained control over their lives. But over time, they began to lose something deeper, something intangible yet vital. Their ability to perceive spiritual truths faded. They became blind to God's presence, deaf to his call. One scene hit me harder than any other. A mother, who had taken the implant for the sake of her children, stood in front of a mirror. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "What have I done?" She clutched a Bible, but the words on the page were meaningless to her now. The connection she once felt with God was gone, replaced by an emptiness she couldn't explain. Jesus spoke again, his tone filled with sorrow. "Once the choice is made, it cannot be undone. This is why my people must be vigilant. The system will not announce itself as evil. It will come disguised as light, offering solutions to the world's problems. Even some of my followers will be deceived." As the vision subsided, I felt myself standing in a place unlike any I'd seen before. The atmosphere shimmered with purity, and the air carried a melody so beautiful it brought tears to my eyes. It was neither day nor night, but an eternal, radiant glow. I knew instantly. I was in the presence of the returning King. Before me stood Jesus, clothed in majesty beyond human comprehension. His eyes blazed with love and power, his presence overwhelming yet comforting. Behind him was a vast assembly, a countless multitude of people, all robed in white, their faces radiant with joy. "This," Jesus said, gesturing to the scene before me, "is the reward for those who remain faithful." I watched as the skies above opened, revealing a breathtaking event. The heavens rolled back like a scroll, and every star seemed to bow in reverence. The earth trembled, not in fear, but as if welcoming its creator. I saw Jesus descending, his glory lighting up the world. Trumpets sounded, their notes resonating through every corner of creation. People from every nation, tribe, and language gathered, their voices rising in unified praise. The faithful who had endured hardship, persecution, and rejection were now standing with their Savior. Their tears were wiped away, their scars transformed into marks of triumph. And then I saw the faces of those who had taken the mark. They were present but apart, their expressions filled with regret and anguish. They saw the truth now, but it was too late. The choice they had made, a choice rooted in fear, convenience, and misplaced trust, had sealed their fate. Jesus turned to me, his voice both firm and tender. "This is why you must speak, Aurelia. Many are still undecided. They walk a path of deception, but my mercy is still available to them. Tell them of my love. Tell them to prepare. Tell them to hold fast to their faith, for the hour is near." He showed me glimpses of what preparation looked like. Believers gathered in small, close-knit communities, sharing resources, teaching each other survival skills, and building lives that were free from dependence on the world's systems. They learned to grow their own food, to care for the sick with natural remedies, and to trade goods without relying on money.
May Lord have mercy on all of us. As I'm about to skip this right now, yeah. In fact, let me just skip it.
I saw families
before it plays another one. This is just a video explaining, but in reality, this is going to be way worse. Way worse than this, I'm telling you. So bad, so much so that Christ is saying, if I don't take my people, they're going to end up giving in. That's how bad it's going to be. So I'm going to take them. The ones who are dedicated to me, I'm going to take them and rescue them. Because if I leave them, hey.
Memorizing scripture together, their hearts filled with hope and determination. They encouraged one another, reminding themselves of God's promises. Their faith became a fortress, unshakable even in the face of the world's demands. Jesus continued, "Those who prepare will not only endure, they will thrive spiritually. Their faith will shine as a beacon in the darkness,